Welcome to the Cosmic Chosen channel. Don't injure my prophets, and don't touch my anointed. That is a cosmic warning, not a suggestion. For when God says, don't touch, he means more than just physical contact. He is saying that you should not lie to them, scheme against them, or spread rumors about them. And don't undervalue them for your own protection. Let me be brutally honest with you. Disrespecting a chosen person is more than simply being impolite. It's a spiritual trespass, and heaven keeps track of receipts. Here's a little-known fact. More than 80% of those who attempted to undermine, deceive, or destroy a truly chosen one ultimately suffered from financial loss, public humiliation, or spiritual pain. By consequence, not by accident. Because God never plays around with his vessels. What's wild, do you want to know? One day, the same people who called them crazy will mutter, "That one was sent by God," just before their own lives fall apart like shoelaces from a cheap store. Yes, until your karma appears in the form of your face, it's amusing. This is a heavenly legal notice, not your typical "be kind to people" message. And you already know that God doesn't simply protect his chosen ones. He avenges them if you've ever been the one in the room, the scapegoat in the family, or the light they attempted to extinguish. So, fasten your seatbelt, because I'm going to demonstrate in this video why God permits people to treat his chosen ones disrespectfully, so he can punish them with the same vigor that they gave. Nothing is being sugar-coated. We are discussing the harsh reality of what happens when individuals come into contact with what heaven has anointed, as well as unadulterated spiritual law and divine vengeance. Let's begin. First, it is a declaration of war against God's will to treat a chosen person disrespectfully. When someone treats a chosen one disrespectfully, they are criticizing God's choice rather than merely a person. It's rebellion. It goes beyond pride or ego. You see, those who are selected are not chosen by themselves. Rather, they are hand-picked by God to fulfill a certain mission, usually one that challenges the corruption, deception, and lies to which others are addicted. Therefore, it is not courageous. It is hazardous when someone makes fun of, denigrates, or attempts to destroy a chosen one. In essence, they are saying, "God, you got it wrong." People fail to understand that offending a chosen one is the spiritual equivalent of speaking in front of a royal god without realizing the king is looking on. Furthermore, God remembers in addition to observing. He takes notes. He answers. On the surface, disrespect may seem innocuous, yet it raises red flags in the spiritual world. When heaven sees it, it responds rather than shrugging. The absurd thing is that the majority of those who oppose chosen ones have no idea why they think they are bad. It's presence, not personality. The devils that they have become accustomed to are disturbed by the anointing. As soon as the chosen ones enter a room, the masks come off, the secrets are revealed, and the falsehoods become uneasy. People lash out because of this. However, in doing so, they declare war on what God is attempting to rectify via that individual. The worst part is that God vocally defends his choices. They will eventually be needed by the same people who mocked the chosen one. Because divine law requires balance, the same voices that slandered will apologize, not because the chosen one asked for it. Therefore, disrespecting a chosen one may not have immediate consequences, but it will undoubtedly have negative effects. And when it does, it won't appear like punishment. Rather, it will show everything they've worked so hard to create disintegrating in slow motion, while the person they disregarded gets up without any problems. That's God demonstrating who he supports, not karma. The second is that the chosen are divine triggers. Their fury code is triggered by disrespect. Every selected person has an innate defense mechanism that kicks in the instant they are mistreated, something that others are unaware of until it is too late. It's genuine, even though it's not always audible or obvious. A chosen one isn't the only one who takes disrespect personally. It starts a divine domino effect that even they can't stop. That's because they are protected by their calling. And the edge of that protection is sharp. Disrespecting a chosen one sets off an old mechanism that is ingrained in their mission. Similar to pressing a spiritual panic button, it begs for judgment. Not the sort you beg for, but the kind that comes whether you're ready or not, rather than assistance. Furthermore, it manifests itself as unforeseen mayhem, missed opportunities and closed doors, rather than always appearing as lightning from the sky. That's not a coincidence. The disrespect is being corrected by spiritual law. Those who are chosen need not curse you. They are not required to return the clap. They only need to remain focused on their goal. Heaven intervenes the instant you cross a line with them, not because they are weak, but rather because God doesn't let anyone meddle with what He is creating, and their presence on earth is strategic. Therefore, you challenged someone who was conveying spiritual instruction, even though it might have appeared that you were just having an argument with an ordinary person. Since it's procedural and not personal, it doesn't appear to be retaliation. Any attack against a selected one is seen as a violation of the mission once they have been designated. And there are repercussions when God's missions are hindered. Because of this, those who oppose those who are chosen eventually have unfathomable breakdowns. It's the silent, effective, and precise activation of the wrath code, not bad luck. It can hit you even if you don't believe it. It is dangerous since there is no way to stop it once it has been set off. The devastation has already been planned. Number 3. Although God's wrath is silently stored, it is released precisely. When someone who has been insulted remains silent, people assume that they are weak, afraid, or self-conscious. They fail to understand, however, that a chosen one's stillness represents accumulation rather than emptiness. It's a quiet before a heavenly storm that brings results rather than noise. God begins to operate in that silence. Heaven starts formulating an answer in that sacred space of stillness that will be more powerful than any argument could ever be. You see, those who are chosen don't usually respond immediately. They've learned, sometimes the hard way, that clapping back is merely a diversion and doesn't solve anything. Thus, they remain silent, not because they lack emotion, but rather because they have come to understand that God's time is superior to their rage. And that quiet is where God keeps His anger. Justice, not hatred, is the source of rage. Because God waits and then strikes precisely when a chosen one is insulted, rather than reacting emotionally at once. Attackers of the chosen believe they have won because they do not receive a prompt answer. They believe they got away with it because of the silence. They fail to realize that even as they boast about their small act of contempt, God is already planning a scenario that will bring them low before the exact person they attempted to degrade. Until He doesn't, God allows people to feel secure. God's actions on behalf of a chosen person are surgical rather than theatrical. It damages relationships, reputations, and resources, areas that cannot be repaired with a hasty apology. The chosen one remains silent, continues to rise, and continues to walk with purpose despite all of that. Because their quiet was a tactic, not a sign of defeat. It was faith. It was giving their flesh over to God to deal with. Therefore, one should exercise caution the next time someone believes that a chosen one is weak since they did not respond. It's a heavy quiet, and their delusion of power ends with it. Fourth, Every act of contempt directed at a chosen individual is a bill that heaven will pay. Disrespecting a chosen one is a transaction, not a passing moment. In the heat of the moment, it could seem like an eye roll, a joke, a gossip, or a sly remark. However, every act of dishonor is recorded in the spiritual world. Heaven doesn't tolerate it. No free shots at a hand-picked individual. Every transgression is noted, branded, and stored, not for retaliation, but for divine gathering. And on the day of collection, it kicks in the door rather than knocking. God is precise, yet He doesn't strike quickly. It's even scarier because of that. Disrespecting a chosen one today could have no consequences for weeks, months, or even years. You may feel brave, strong, unaffected, and amused by it. Heaven, however, never had a shortage of time. The deeper the lesson and the heavier the interest, the longer God waits. And when He comes to collect, you're paying for the haughtiness you displayed while doing it, not simply for what you said or did. The worst part is that God doesn't always target you with His judgment. He occasionally permits your kids to walk across the fires you caused. When one person's pride turns into another's curse, it causes misery across generations. Individuals fail to understand that when they mistreat a chosen one, they poison their lineage in addition to sullying their own hands. The disrespect endures until the loan is settled in full. It doesn't go away with them. Because of this, some families are plagued by recurring themes of poverty, illness, betrayal, and loss that they are unable to overcome. They are being corrected by God because someone else handled a vessel of God improperly. They are not cursed by witches. Heaven also never forgets. No matter how successful, spiritual, or untouchable someone feels, it makes no difference. The invoice remains open if a selected one was treated disrespectfully. And God will gather one day silently, flawlessly, and without notice. Number 5. God will announce your return through the very people who questioned you. God doesn't simply vindicate in silence. He makes the entire situation into a theatrical spectacle. So disrespecting a chosen one has a twist. The best part is that He utilizes the same people who have branded the chosen one insane, rolled their eyes, and laughed behind closed doors to announce their ascent. It's divine irony at its best, not retaliation. When God restores a chosen one, He does so in a way that is unrepentant, calculated, and public. Those who previously questioned, ridiculed, or rejected the chosen one now find themselves repeating their name in unexpected places, not out of loyalty, but out of need. Now, the same lips that formerly expressed disdain resound with awe, and occasionally even fixation. Because when God restores a life, the change is too obvious to miss. The radiance is indisputable, and the favor is obvious. It's a supernatural rerouting that makes everyone who believed they had the final say eat their words on TV. It's not a comeback. Even more vicious is the fact that those who once stood together to destroy the chosen one begin to turn against one another. Loyalty breaks out. Alliances break up. All of a sudden, adoration is dividing those same circles that flourished on disdain. Because God does more than simply save the chosen. He uses their narrative to discredit all those who believed they could play with someone who had been selected by heaven. It's about correction, not influence. God raises His chosen ones to disclose, not to impress. Making the same individuals who undervalued them become ambassadors for their advancement is a component of that realization. That is God's way. He orchestrates rather than clapping back. He allows the animosity to heighten the tension before drastically changing the plot. so that even the critics begin to sound like admirers. When those who assisted in burying the chosen one are now boasting that they knew them before to the glow-up, you'll know the comeback has been divinely orchestrated. It's not a coincidence. God is employing the skeptics as unwitting forerunners of the ascent they vowed would never occur. Sixth, curses that are passed on as coincidences are borne by those who disgrace selected ones. Most people fail to see the connection between their disrespect and their demise. They believe that life is simply unfair. They refer to it as bad luck, a difficult time, or we all go through things. However, some of those coincidences are actually repercussions rather than coincidences, because a door is unwittingly opened when someone disgracefully disregards a chosen one. There isn't a lightning bolt from the sky behind that door. Rather, it's a steady unraveling that appears normal but is everything but. They don't anticipate it. The first is that they unexpectedly lost the employment they believed to be secure. The betrayal by an unexpected person comes next. Then there are the odd delays, the constant failures, and the unjustifiable breakups. At first glance, it appears to be life rather than a curse. However, the reality is revealed by the pattern. Not only does disrespect for what God has anointed bounce back, but it also boomerangs quietly and fatally. The most perilous aspect is that it doesn't always directly harm the individual who disregarded the chosen one. At times, it disturbs their tranquility. It can occasionally harm their reputation. It occasionally infiltrates their money or the lives of their children. It's not overt. Through lost chances, it murmurs. It manifests as fatigue, dissatisfaction, or recurrent loss. Their spirit knows something changed, and it wasn't for the better, but they'll persuade themselves, this is just life. God allows the outcomes speak for themselves. He doesn't need to declare that someone is being judged. And you get something you didn't ask for, spiritual turbulence, when you touch what He set apart. It appears under the pretense of unstoppable bad luck and doesn't have a name tag that reads, "This is because you disrespected a chosen one." And pride has already widened the hole by the time they recognize it. Dishonor is never innocuous because of this. The repercussions start subtly and clearly, the instant someone tinkers with a chosen one's name, spirit, or purpose. Furthermore, nothing can undo what their soul sparked, no matter how much they try to act like it was merely a coincidence. Seventh, disrespect alerts the throne. The chosen have a divine surveillance system. People don't understand that those who are selected aren't living their lives in ignorance or without protection. They aren't just out there naively assuming who is on their side and who isn't. They have a divine monitoring system, which is something that the normal individual does not have. The throne has a direct connection to their spirit. This implies that heaven has already been warned by the time someone begins to scheme, whisper, or scheming behind closed doors. They may be unfamiliar with the treachery, but God is not. You may try keeping it modest. All of it is visible, even if you speak quietly, erase the texts, and grin in their face while packing the knife behind your back. Chosen ones sense something is wrong, even if they don't always understand how. God uses their intuition as an antenna to send out warnings. The rapid change in energy, the goosebumps they get around specific people, and the confused dreams they wake up from are all signs from the throne room. It's protection, not paranoia. People make the error of believing that because they haven't been caught, they are getting away with something. However, God does not always face the adversary. Sometimes He simply and discreetly calls off the plan. He'll end a phone call, postpone a meeting, sever a phony friendship, or reveals someone through a verbal blunder. The entire plan falls apart even before it is launched. The plotters sit there perplexed, wondering why the setup didn't work. The answer is straightforward. Heaven stopped the attack before it could reach the victim when you attempted to attack someone under divine surveillance. Those who are chosen walk with protection rather than blindness. Every chamber in which they are discussed is monitored by the throne, which keeps track of every slight, deception, and subtle attack against them. And even though they might not strike back, God does. Because they were not only being sneaky, but they were also setting off spiritual procedure. People who attempt to undermine a chosen one frequently wind up sabotaging themselves. Furthermore, no plan created in the dark will ever come to light once heaven is engaged. Eighth, the protection of a chosen one is so brutal that it appears to be retaliation. When it comes to his chosen people, God is serious. Not only is the level of protection over them high, but it is also aggressive. Not violent in the sense that people think, but rather in the sense that heaven sets limits. Because of how quickly and forcefully it strikes anything that tries to attack them. It's protection that appears to be retaliation. People don't understand they're entering forbidden zone. They believe they're simply crossing another human. And instantly, the spiritual sirens sound. Because of this, when someone comes for a chosen one, their life doesn't completely fall apart. Rather, it unravels, not slowly, but disastrously. They lose respect in addition to the argument. They are revealed rather than merely blocked. They endure a spiritual shutdown rather than merely a setback. It's divine priority. It's neither poor luck nor overkill. Heaven doesn't care about delays or diversions when someone is carrying a purpose that God has appointed them. Divine resistance automatically targets anyone attempting to undermine that goal. The selected one is typically too focused, too exhausted, or too spiritually developed to even clap back. So it's not about them seeking retribution. That's the setup, though. God is invited to respond by their quiet. Additionally, his response is explosive rather than balanced. It completely cleans the board, not just the score. This explains why some people who defy a chosen one do not get better. They lose credibility, peace, relationships, and platforms, and they are unaware that it all stems from the time they attempted to offend someone who was marked by heaven. The crazy thing is that a lot of people don't even anticipate it. They believed they were being cunning, believed they were amusing, believed that the selected one was a simple target. They were unaware, however, that making contact with that individual was equivalent to setting off a nuclear detonator. No prior notice, no second chances, just complete spiritual repercussions. It is the result of the transition from passive to active divine protection. It is not drama. God fiercely protects his chosen ones. He does not do so lightly. Number 9. Your disdain prevents you from accessing the chosen. It does not lessen them. A selected one's destiny gets sealed off when you treat them disrespectfully. It doesn't delay theirs. Most folks overlook that portion. They believe that the chosen one is somehow harmed by their rumors, demeanor, or shade. However, the reality is that God has already started them on their journey. In any case, they will elevate. You are blocked, not them, by the disrespect. And that locked door is the price of disgrace, not punishment. In the presence of a chosen one, God frequently conceals the answers to people's prayers. Breakthroughs, ideas, healing, alignment, it's all there. They have been designated to carry specific keys, not because the selected one is superior. However, people lose the very access they didn't even realize they needed when they react to that with arrogance, envy, or mockery. then life becomes strange. They don't know why, but the favor stops coming in and the doors stop opening. They insulted the ship that was sent to unlock their next season, which is why. Many people are struggling because they verbally canceled their own blessing rather than because they are cursed, because they were unable to identify anointing when it wasn't dressed as they had anticipated. They bungled alignment. They were carrying something divine, even if the chosen one was silent, different, yet healing and still rising. And rather than respecting it, individuals attempted to control, undermine, or compete with it. And now they're stuck because heaven denied them entrance, not because the chosen one did something to them. The true tragedy is that you missed what God had for you because you were unable to deal with the person He sent it through. Sometimes people's attitude toward the person God has placed in their lives for their advancement is the obstacle, not always the devil. The door that they disregarded had the power to change everything. That door is now barred because dishonor disqualifies, not because it is petty. It's stance, not clout, that gives you access to the chosen ones. Additionally, the opportunity is lost permanently if the posture is incorrect. Number 10. Your blessings are redirected the instant you curse a chosen one. You are rerouting your own blessings when you curse a chosen one, in addition to bringing negativity into their life. You see, blessings are not isolated. They function similarly to spiritual currency, passing through those who share God's mission. It's like throwing a wrench into the gears when disrespect is added. Instead of going to your life, the favor that was intended for you is diverted and ends up in the hands of the exact person you attempted to devalue. It's justice, not punishment. God works in divine equilibrium rather than petty paybacks. You are not only disrespecting someone when you attempt to curse what He has anointed, you are also disrespecting the system of heaven. In response, heaven takes what was intended for you and places it in a place where it will be respected. The doors that you had hoped to enter begin to close. The opportunities that appeared to be yours to seize, they go. In the meantime, the person you attempted to degrade is lifted. A new home is found for the blessings you turned down, and seeing the person you made fun of or denigrated stroll in the favor you once believed was yours is a terrible pill to swallow. It's one of the strongest spiritual rules, yet it's a challenging lesson. The favor to which you were entitled finds a new home when you oppose what God has established. It's about divine harmony, not retribution. The chosen one was picked because they were obedient, in line with God's will, and bearing something that the universe couldn't ignore, not because they were flawless. You lose access to what you were originally meant to inherit when you attempt to disgrace that, in addition to losing favor. The worst part is that you have to see it all unfold. They ascend, you see. You see them receive blessings. As time progresses, you come to understand that the gifts that you once had are now forever out of your grasp. The saddest part is that it was your fault, not even theirs. Number 11. When it comes to His chosen, God never gives a second warning. God doesn't give His chosen people more than one warning. This is current, contemporary truth, not some distant ancient story from the Old Testament. Once or twice, you might get away with disrespecting someone, but after that, you've gone too far, and the sky doesn't remain open forever. God's patience eventually runs out, not because He gets angry easily, but rather because His goal is holy. Additionally, He makes a line in the sand when you touch what He has designated. Although it exists, grace is not given to His chosen vessels without conditions. The opportunities to desecrate what God has marked are limited. People frequently believe that they may continue to push, discuss, plot, and undermine since they haven't seen any immediate repercussions. However, that is the trap. For there comes a time when the door to mercy gets shut, and there is no second chance or extended grace when that occurs. God is not being spiteful. Rather, He is defending His purpose. And that plan goes beyond the small-minded insult directed at one of His ships. When you step over that line, God's reaction is immediate. The security that surrounded you starts to change as the heavens close. Your previous window of opportunity is starting to close, and you find yourself in a dry season instead of the favor you may have been riding. You begin to lose things you once took for granted, and you're not even aware that it's because you've been pushing the limits of divine favor. This is about divine order, not about being too harsh or playing a game. Grace can occasionally be used as a tool for justice, and disrespecting God's chosen people has immediate and irrefutable repercussions. When God says, "Enough," there is no room for debate or compromise, and folks frequently discover that lesson much too late. Number 12. Divine retaliation, not bad luck, is the cause of their ongoing misery. There are many who believe they are simply cursed. For them, nothing ever seems to go right. In actuality, though, their suffering is a result of divine retaliation rather than ill luck. The problem is that it's the inevitable result of offending someone God has selected. It's not witches cursing them or karma coming back to haunt them. They don't know why they're reaping destruction after sowing the seeds of shame. It's the natural order of divine justice, not some enigmatic curse that chooses people at random. This is spiritual math, not magic. Additionally, it continues to function until the equilibrium is restored, much like any other natural law. They fail to see that disrespect is an investment in their own misery, rather than merely a harmless deed. Every insult, contemptuous gesture, every act of undermining sows a seed, and seeds sprout. The harvest is inevitable, but they often emerge in ways that aren't immediately apparent. They lose the employment they assumed would always be there. They lose the friendships they relied on. The health problems appear to be getting worse. It's all a part of a cycle. And unless people accept responsibility for their actions, the circle will continue. It is comparable to planting thorns in the ground and unexpectedly getting pricked by them. The cycle is a spiritual rule that will not end on its own. How remorseful they are after the event also doesn't matter. Addressing the underlying cause of the divine backlash cycle, repentance, is the only way to break it. Not merely apologizing, but actually repenting and taking responsibility for their disrespect. The cycle will continue until they accomplish that. Similar to being caught in quicksand, people sink more the more they attempt to fight without realizing what caused their fall. It's necessary, but it's brutal. Until individuals take responsibility for their actions and put things right, the seeds they sowed will remain imprisoned in their spiritual harvest. Number 13. Those who are chosen don't fight. Instead, they see God publicly humble you. Those who are chosen don't waste their time arguing. They don't look for approval, and they most definitely don't try to prove their value to others. Rather, they stand up. As God accomplishes the heavy lifting, they advance with silent strength. They don't argue or attempt to defend themselves when someone treats them disrespectfully. No, they know that their goal is greater than any short-lived slight. They just continue. God also ensures that their adversaries are left to observe from the sidelines. What follows is a public lesson for the disrespecter, as well as a victory for the selected one. They'll be unable to escape the chosen one, and they'll be watching in shock as the person they made fun of rises to prominence and respect. It's God's design. not a coincidence. The selected one rises, frequently exceeding those who formerly questioned or denigrated them, while the one who attempted to bring them down stays motionless. The worst part is that it's about revelation rather than retaliation. God elevates His chosen ones to demonstrate to others that His favor is unquestionable, not merely for their own sake. A selected one's ascent is a public demonstration of what occurs when you touch the incorrect person. Everyone in attendance is enlightened by the fact that disdaining God's anointed has repercussions. The disrespecter gets to see their victim turn into the talk of the town, the success story, and the headline. Unable to understand how they went from being in charge to being abandoned, they are left in the dust. The selected one lets their ascent speak for itself. It's not about clapping back. They allowed God to humiliate their adversaries, while those who doubted them are compelled to see the elevation they never believed was conceivable. The chosen one continues to rise quietly and silently. No amount of debate could ever produce that degree of truth. It's divine justice in operation. Number 14. If God wants you to kneel down before the chosen one, He will allow you to rise. God knows just how to bring pride crashing down. Therefore, He isn't scared to let it lift you. Some individuals lose sight of the fact that God's timing is perfect, and that He may quickly take you from the top to the bottom because they are so consumed by their own ego and believe that their success is due to their own greatness. For the sole purpose of arranging a humbling that is as visible as your bragging, He will allow your pride to exalt you. And when He does, you will be forced to bend down in front of the exact person you ridiculed, someone you scoffed at, and someone you believed to be beneath you. This is about upholding heaven's hierarchy, not about retribution. God doesn't mess with the people He has selected. Additionally, you may get away with disrespecting or undermining what He has anointed for a long. However, He will finally ensure that you see the very power that you attempted to weaken. Additionally, He will let the entire world to witness it rather than just allowing it to occur in private. He'll make sure you're facing the person you formerly treated disrespectfully, and you'll have to admit how fantastic they are. It's divine order, not humiliation. The hierarchy in heaven has a way of imposing itself, and disobeying it has repercussions. Pride might make you stronger, but it can also make you more vulnerable. And when that fall occurs, it's not just about the loss. It's also about realizing how powerful the person you attempted to undermine really is. You won't have anywhere to hide, and will be standing there in humility. The folks who used to laugh at you will now watch you bend down to the person you insulted. This is not God boasting. Rather, it is God demonstrating to the world who is really in charge. Ultimately, the message is unmistakable. God's chosen people are impervious to human touch. Their rise is inexorable, their mission unwavering, and their path divinely protected. Even if you try to undermine them, toss stones, or speak negatively, the power of heaven will ultimately triumph. The disrespect you show them is a boomerang that will return to you, not a tool to devalue them. It is an indisputable, universal truth and a law of God. You will get what you sow. And when you oppose God's anointed, you are confronted not only with their might, but also with the whole weight of heavenly justice, grace, and divine order. Thus, keep in mind that the selected ones are exempt from having to defend themselves. They don't have to retort, defend, or debate. They just get up. And when God raises people up, it's for everyone to see, not just for their own gain. Every insult, jeer, and assault is a prelude to a revelation, not only for them, but also for you. Because the shadows people attempt to cast will never be as radiant as God's glory, and you'll see the truth in its full power one day. You'll witness how a chosen one will rise triumphantly and unashamedly in accordance with heaven's will, regardless of how many times they have been struck down. God doesn't forget. Therefore, let this serve as a reminder to anybody who would dare to dishonor. He never misses anything. Furthermore, it is impossible to avoid the reality of God's plan when His justice is revealed. The selected ones only need to stand for their mission. They don't need to engage in combat. And when they do, all the other things fall into place, and all the wrongs are fixed. It's heavenly alignment, not retaliation, and nobody can compete with that force. Don't forget to click the subscribe button right now if this message spoke to you and you felt the strength of these truths in your soul. Become a part of this group of people who recognize the existence of divine justice and the ascension of the selected. We have a lot of amazing information heading your way that you don't want to miss. While you're at it, please leave a comment with your ideas and like this video. What caught your attention the most? Please let me know how these words are influencing your path. Remember to forward this to someone who needs to hear it, because, believe me, you never know whose life a single message can impact. Recall that we all rise with God's chosen ones. Continue spreading the word, believing, and shining. I appreciate you being here. The next one will see you. May you be blessed.